Ancient Dacia, Preface, pages 1 to 41 out of 125 before we get to the meat of this book. Here we go. Page 1, title, Ancient Dacia, author, Nicolae Densusianu. Page 2. Just so you know, I tried to keep the pages identical to what I'm translating to make it easier for myself to reference later on when I do in-depth analysis. Page 2 blank, page 3 blank, page 4 blank, page 5 Ancient Dacia by Nicolae Densusianu with a preface by Dr. C.I. Istrati. Bucharest Archetype Edition 2002. Page 6, the ISBN number 973-9296-335. This was updated or rather put online in Bucharest in 2002 by publishing house Semmi, which in translated means science. This edition is a facsimile reproduction of the book Ancient Dacia by Nicolae Densusianu, appeared for the first time in Bucharest, the Institute of Graphic Arts Karol Gobel. The address was also listed, the year 1913. Page 7, picture of Nicolae Densusianu in Brasov around 1876 or 1877. This is the man. Page 8, blank. Page 9, picture of Nicolae Densusianu on a scientific excursion a few years prior to his death. This is him. Page 10, blank. Page 11. Nicolae Densusianu, his life and opera. The importance of ancient Dacia. In the magazine Our Home, on the date of April 1st, 1911, Ref 1, anytime it's in parentheses, a number, that's a reference. The first article started with the following words. At the end of last week, the newspapers published, probably based on police information, a note with small characters in the following format. Nicolae Densusianu, the librarian for the Romanian army, has been found dead in his home on Saint Street. Roughly the same thing was told by the civilian officer in the recently deceased section of the newspapers, and as a conclusion, Nicolae Densusianu departed this world in the same modest way he lived in it. He does not leave this world with a parade and fanfare, because his burial day was not like it was for many others, the only day in which his name was mentioned. These few words, which show us clearly who Nicolae Densusianu was, and his fate, let's say for us too, probably more for us than in other parts, those modest, righteous, hard-working, and respectable, I applaud the most, Sir O. Lugoșanu. With certainty he wrote, as I also read, with a heart full of pain. Yes, Nicolae Densusianu is no more. He died on March 24th, 1911 at 1:30 in the afternoon. His soul, which left a valley of cries after a life full of resignation and work, was the soul of one of the most notable beings of the Romanian nation. I believe and have the courage to say that the Romanian nation did not have many worthy sons like Densusianu, and that in our pantheon he will be, with certainty, leader amongst leaders. Rarely has there been a man more certain in sacrificing his life, because for over 40 years he lived his life with only a single scope: to abandon all of life's pleasures, to isolate from the world, to give up family, to separate himself from everything and everyone, to dedicate everything for all that he was capable of, realizations of only a beautiful dream, which led to the unburial of a golden past of his nation. The first reference was from Annal 1, number 21, Bucharest. Page 12. Modest, intelligent, very religious, well versed in Latin and Greek, German, French, Italian, and Hungarian, gifted with an iron will and with an extraordinary capability for patience and perseverance, this man amazes you in what he did and how he did it. He was satisfied in life with the bare necessities, out of which he still managed to accumulate a wealth of documents, acts, and publications which he needed. He gathered enough information to leave the gift of a library of information for the Romanian army and something, a truly pious remembrance, for Astra from Transylvania. All that he did All that he did can be seen easily from what he published, and especially from his personal notes, which were extremely numerous, rich, and precise. He followed a single goal, that of unburying our glorious past and to bring to light the glorious facts of the Romanian nation. Nations, like religions, have their priests, out of which some live and oftentimes torture themselves only for the heightening of the nation. And Densusianu was a priest, more, an apostle. Those who know him, those that will discover his activities, will be unable to have anything except admiration and recognition for him. The future will write about Densusianu as someone among the Romanians who contributed with revealing the things that interest humanity. I personally knew this man for a long time, but too little about him. I studied recently his opera. Fortunate circumstances put me in the position to realize from up close, consulting his unedited notes and writings, and to be happy seeing through myself what amazing work a Romanian is capable of doing. From his work and suffering, the national pride is lifted, which captivates hearts and strengthens consciousnesses. I think those that allow me to unveil Densusianu, which few know among us. With this occasion I thank Sir A. Hentiescu, who executed the will of N. Densusianu, and Sir C. Gobel and Sir I. Rasidescu, who have the merit, as was seen previously, of contributing to a great opera. Addressing me, these three individuals guessed that they would find a heart which beats with ease, and all the warmth possible for a good deed. I saw this time also that I would be dealing with a man. His classic figure, distinguishable, open, good-willing, and which reveal his good nature and thought process, his modesty not too well known, or before I continue, page 13. His good nature and thought process, his modesty not too well known or more often unappreciated among us, and which made him shy, surprised you from the first encounter. His clear glance, just like his clear consciousness, his rare speech, distinct, settled from all points of view, revealed the rational mindset and heartfelt human being. Meaning, Meaningless things did not exist in him. The emptiness which dazes so many among us was foreign to his way of being. Slightly pretentious, natural, without imperfections, without wishes that make man struggle and destroy societies, he searched peace and quietness, seriosity and healthier relationships. He was satisfied with little. His entire life is proof. Such a well balanced way of being and well taken care of still had its passionate side, in which storms moved about without reservation to rob him of his way of being. Densusianu was a true patriot, not full of himself, not conceited, and even less a trickster. All the fire that such a consciousness was capable of was used to warm, in his heart, the love of his country and contributed to make him give up everything, to sacrifice himself fully to contribute to the heightening of his country. And what a special love this was! Clean it was, working hard only to bring to light as much as possible the good parts of the Romanian people and to show the past as highly as possible for assuring its heightening in the future. As so, he dedicates his entire existence to the nation out of which he was born. Densusianu was one out of the same Transylvanian people who no longer wish to know about their beloved or martyred Transylvanian, nor about Romanian, which so many of them criticize unjustly, nor about Macedonia, which it seems we seem to have forgotten from the free country, after we caused it so much harm, nor about Basarabia. Which gained a century of lethargy, nor about Bukovina, with its treasures from the past. None of these, but those that love passionately the entire land inhabited by Romanians, without naming the borders except that of our beloved language, land which was turned red with the blood of our heroes and martyrs, our everlasting homeland of charming music and beautiful women with beautiful faces, which make our thoughts fly ever higher, always rising. Dacia Felix was the home of Densusianu. Proto-Latin Dacia, Pelasgic Dacia, his ideal, look what his heart desired and for what he sacrificed himself through his work. Nobody be a skeptic. Everyone will believe, I am sure, just like me, reading this great, valuable work. Two names will be tied in the future about Dacia. Their designation should not appear to us as curious or unjustified. Traian and Densusianu. Traian conquered historic Dacia with the Romanian army and the power of his genius. Page 14. Densusianu conquered prehistoric Dacia with this monumental work after his death. Only through the power and genius of his work does he become divine. The Roman armies, to get to the heart of Dacia and to conquer its capital, followed multiple paths. The Carpathians, these old and good defenders of those who knew to hide in the shadow of its life-giving ridges, formed the wall against invaders. The legions that rose, specifically from Severine towards Sarmisegetusa, followed the course of the river Jew. What the modern technique could do with our angels on the beautiful yet wild valley of the Lainichi, on which was paved not too long ago on an admirable path, would not have been able to be done, especially as rushed as they were, the specialists of the Roman army. Look how from Bumbest, the last paved path in the valley, the Roman army went through over the mountains of the massive Vulcan and over all the Hatsegui mountains to climb down the midnight angle in the narrow yet fertile and especially poetic valley of the Stray, which takes its waters into the Mureș. In this purely Romanian center, there is not too far away from the Transylvanian iron door, Grădiștea, now a small rural commune, but which was twice proud and imposing, first as Sarmisegetusa and then as Olpia Traiană, the former capital of Dacia. She is situated on the shores of Hatsegui, in an admirable valley surrounded by tall and beautiful mountain ridges. Somewhat higher than Grădiștea, there is the small commune Densus, named Densus, former home of Clausius Longinus, who built there a mausoleum for his family, which exists until today, serving as a Greco-Catholic Romanian church for the local villagers. That is where N. Densusianu was born on April 18th, 1846. In this birthplace of Latin Dacia, in this heavenly nest on earth, in this saintly corner of the world for us, but kind of forgotten, full of the tracks and memories of the big empires, the Dacian one and the Roman one, saw the light of the sun and grew that which could not be, made later on more infamous through the chosen culture than a great Romanian patriot. Today, Olpia Traiană is named Varheli, and this name says more than anything else what the fate of today is of this old Transylvanian location and what is happening with our brothers from the northeast. Longinus's mausoleum, this admirable monument, spared of the stepfathers of time just like its worshippers, is the greatest living proof and the greatest protest of the people's rights that cannot be trampled over. Varheli will never be solitarily triumphant from Olpia Traiană. From Densusianu's birth certificate, it can be seen that he was the child of the priest of Densus, Byzantius Densusianu, and his wife Sophia. His godmother was Lapoducia Nicolaesca. Page 15. He had as a big brother Aaron, a poet and a critic, born in the same place in 1838, former professor of Latin at Iași University, the author of Negriada, of the history of the Romanian language and literature, and other numerous worthy publications. The picture can be seen of the mausoleum of Longinus in Densus, Transylvania. I want to go there one day. All these places I mentioned, I want to go there one day. And I will. That's the next challenge I face. To continue, after the picture. The son of this man is the Bucharest University professor with many merits named Ovid Densusianu. Page 16. He came to this world a little before the year of 1848, which gave rise to just over 40,000 Romanians, generally without culture, but conscious and proud of their origins, taken care of by a loving mother, and in the home of a cultured and patriotic Transylvanian priest. Densusianu grew up in a modest way of life, but clean. A childhood in the middle of an admirable natural environment, in a locality which in every moment spoke to him about the glorious past of the Romanian nation, and an epoch in which Romanians were reborn to a somewhat more free life. These believers in their nice emperor, side by side with the army for which they profoundly bled, were now certain that even they have the right to a humane lifestyle after centuries of true martyrdom. He started to learn about the ways of the world just when the Romanians started slowly to come out with a long list of grievances, whose value knew no margins. Not long before, the central administration had to give orders to clean again the roads of the numerous thorns, the corpses of the Romanian forest trees fallen victims to the Hungarians, as to not insult the vision of the great soul and rare protector of the Romanian element. May he be remembered well, Emperor Joseph II. Didn't a Hungarian offer right? The pitchforks, jails, ripsaws, hooks, ropes, and rock edges never killed more criminals than the Romanians. Ref 1. How could such a kid, raised with such memories and seeing the misery around him, not become such a great patriot? Then when through culture he realized better of his people's suffering, which for him still had so many rights. The family out of which Densusianu came was an old Romanian family known as Pop de Hațeg. The name Densusianu was given to children, first to Aaron from the gymnasium in Blaj, so that the professors could tell him apart from the many other Pop that were in school. This name stuck, and they used it later on to further their work. His primary classes were taken in Hațeg, for certain at the Franciscans, where his brother Aaron went to school since 1846. In his paperwork so well maintained, I cannot find anything except the paperwork starting from the year 1862 onwards, when N. Densusianu, at the age of 17, found himself at the gymnasium in Blaj in 6th grade. From his own testimony in school in the second semester of this year, given on July 1st, 1862, it can be seen that this adolescent, good, sympathetic, and beautiful, obtained the best grades. First reference was from Wolfgangi Beflin, Historia de Rebus Transylvaniensis, edition 2, Tom 4, page 428, see page 71 from Horia de Densusianu. Page 17. School report from his grades showing his performance. First place out of 55 students examined. Moral aptitude with praise. Attention And diligence, good. Remarks about his aptitude in each subject. Religion, very satisfactory. Latin language, very satisfactory. Greek language, very satisfactory. Maternal language, or Romanian, very satisfactory. German language, very satisfactory. Hungarian language, very satisfactory. History and geography, very satisfactory. Math, very satisfactory. Natural sciences, which was history and physics, very satisfactory. Propadeutics, I don't even know what this word means. I'll look it up. Cantu, who was an Italian historian. No grades here. External form of occupational scriptures, very good. Number of hours missed, 6. Excused. At the head of this gymnasium there is the immortal Cipario, when Alexandru Mică was professor of mathematics and physics. Ioane Antonelli, professor of the Latin language. Ioane Popescu, professor of Hungarian. Olimpiu Blașianu, professor of Greek and German languages, and Ioane Moldovanu, professor of the Latin language and philosophy. In the winter examinations he was still first place out of 50 colleagues, as is visible in his scholar testimony given on February 7, 1863. But his fierce work could not have taken place without a serious touch upon his delicate and reserved nature, which can be seen on his 6th grade graduation certificate given on September 13, 1863, in which we find hours missed, 2 months and 1/2 excused, and the school professor of the class A Micu noted, paraphrasing here, Densusianu missed 2 months and a half of school because of some grave sickness. I don't need to add that for all his studies he still got a very satisfactory. This is how he moved forwards in the small town of Blaj, admirable from his memory of the year of 1848, with the great number of Romanians who fought for the existence of the nation, and through the small word contribution of the intelligence, as was said around there, the small fist of people who looked to follow the path opened by Klein, by Simci, and other modest scholars, but hard-working and worthy of the Romanian people of those parts. Page 18. On July 5th and 6th, 1865, he passed the high school exit exam with very good performance for all subjects except German, which he got a good for. The Romanians from the northeast did not have superior schools past high school in 1861. They don't have any, not even in the present. When I see the fight which is imposed upon especially this nation to prevent cultural elevation, I understand better than anything the horror of those who have the power in Romania to commit such crimes. But he who has trust in the triumph of the truth and righteousness, and he who knows the evolution of our people, will never doubt, not even for a moment, the future foreseen by Bolintineanu, which this nation has. Those from free Romania also have great and hard tasks, and I have the hope that they will realize what must be encountered with the whole nation from this point of view. On October 10th, 1865, we see in an Akademischer Annachschein signed by Dr. Müller, director, that Nicolae Densusianu enrolled at Sibiu et Rechtsakademie. Here is in a German town, something special in those times, but in a respectable Romanian center, further than Ulpia Traiană, which spoke to him of the glorious past, but on the coast of Selenberg, which reminded him about the facts, glory, and thought process of Mihai Viteazul. I don't know how the Sibiu's juridical faculty was organized on that day, but from some Prüfungszeugnis kept by Densusianu, we can see that he did not pay taxes. This was because of his exemplary perseverance and his scholastic aptitude, and the fact that he was classified first in the following studies, even from the first year: Austrian history, 5 hours per week with Dr. Pfaff; Pandecte, 10 hours per week; History and Institutions of Romanian Rights, 9 hours per week; The History of the German Empire and its Rights, 6 hours per week. All these make an average of 5 hours of classes per day, first year of college. This is a mean average for a university student when the student wants to learn and the teacher wants to perform his duties. It would be wise to recognize that certain colleges which, when they reach 2 hours per day in the program, with a good reason for absence, especially for the professor, it is considered something exceptional, was done, worth praising. Densusianu took classes in this approach for 4 years, and in the Absolutorium, which was given to him on July 20th, 1869 by Dr. Gottfried Müller, guidance counselor and director, we see that in all the years and in all the subjects he received a mention attended with great diligence. In all years in the rubric progress of the class, he is listed as first from the start, and by the end he even receives the mention exclusive to him, first place with honors. Page 19. The subjects studied were numerous and varied. He followed ethics in his second year and canonic rights, also known as ecclesiastic Protestant, Austrian civil rights, political economics, statistics, civil and penal procedures, to end with the sciences of political administration, the science of financial and administrative laws oriented towards the foreign exchange market, commerce, and mountain laws. I don't know what that is. For a SAS, which is a term for German occupation in Transylvania at that time. For a SAS college in Sibiu, and in the year 1869, we must recognize that the subjects of study were fully integrated into the college. And with all these conditions, he was among the top students with distinction. Still, let's not believe that the young Densusianu had an easy life, that he had a peaceful life and certain future, that he could dedicate himself fully to his studies. Such students are rare everywhere, but especially in the countries where Romanians live, such types of happy people don't exist. Whomever has been to Blaj knows how many things these poor boys are missing. Oftentimes these orphans eat to study only pila, which I think is a pilaf, a rice-based dish. Only pila, which is given to them free for several days. Almost all eat merinde, which is cold food, brought to them by their unfortunate parents in their purses every Sunday. Gosh, how much suffering and what a prisoner lifestyle. And how many of these kids fall while walking, and how many SAS never get weak or make the land fat. Martyrs of our people, we pray in front of you, at least this much. During his studies, Densusianu lost his father and in the process almost all ways of supporting himself. In August 1867, when he passed successfully the second-year graduation exam, he returned in the country, as can be seen from a petition on August 15 addressed to the Literature Society of our Academy, just created. With this petition he asked for, quote, based on my status of orphan and the total absence of means of supporting myself, end quote, he says, asking for help to help him study. Fortunately, the Academy had at its disposition a patriotic foundation of the urban municipality of Brăila, for helping young Romanians from across the border. Why such help is no longer given, why the Transylvanians from Transylvania who are millionaires no longer think about the sadness of the falling tears of those who remain in their posts of honor in their motherland, where they suffer all the hardships. Look at the response from September 6th, which was given by Heliade Radulescu, who was the president of the Academy. Quote, taking into consideration your pleas and the testimony seen in your letters, the Romanian Academic Society has decided to choose you to be the beneficiary for scholastic year 1867 to 1868. Out of all the votes from the urban municipality of Brăila, with a burst of 2,000 lei. Lei was Romanian currency. To supplement your recognition, you are also brought to the attention of the Romanian Academic Society, signed by President I. Heliade R. Bucharest, September 6, 1867, end quote. With this occasion on September 10, 1867, Densusianu hurries to thank the municipality of Brăila. There we find, quote, patriotism and love of nation was always the traditional characteristic of the Romanian, and even in this year of persecution and tyranny of the Romanian sons from Transylvania. The city of Brăila was the one who listened to our cries and our lives, contrary to the Hungarian stranglehold, and with untold generosity extended a helping hand. The city of Brăila funded us so we could go to Italy, our mother country, so that we could save not only the language, but also the nationality, so that we can remember that Italy was our birthplace, and that a new Italy we must raise from the shores of the Danube. End quote. There we also find the cause of his father's death. Quote, 3.5 million Romanians from Austria were our parents in 1848, open parenthesis, where the roots that killed my father also are, close parenthesis, bled for liberty and the throne. The same king whips us today and terrorizes the people who fought against him then. Today, not only do we not have freedom, but even the language, which has been preserved with so much sanctity by our forefathers, finds itself dissipating. End quote. And finally, he confesses that, open quote, under the protective shield of the Honorable Municipal Council of Brăila today, my career has been simplified, which I was going to interrupt. The path was paved for me towards the poetic Italy I have dreamt of since I grabbed in my hands poetic lyrics. End quote. Good deeds always have their own rewards. The name of Densusianu will always be tied to what the city of Brăila did. Who knows if without this little help, Densusianu could have done what he did later. All you Romanian patrons, throw at least a breadcrumb towards those that are good. Let your heart beat for the suffering of our nation. Contribute something towards maintaining the light which the enemies want to extinguish with any price. Stroescu Basarabeanu, Stroescu who elevated himself through his understanding and wiseness, Stroescu who gives so much, living so modestly, let him be a model for you. What did Densusianu do afterwards, after finishing his studies in Sibiu? On July 20th, 1869 and until January 1870, we cannot know. Did he spend this time in his birthplace next to his beloved mother? Did he travel somewhere? I don't know anything. Page 21. We only know that his big brother Aaron, who studied the same subjects in the same schools, finished his schooling in 1864. By getting married, he established himself as a lawyer in Făgăraș, where he led the Romanian opposition until 1875, a time during which he was even locked up in jail for 1 month. Also, in the maps of Densusianu, I found a letter regarding his brother signed on January 20th, 1870. Quote, G. Făgăreșanu, Prasidiliu Magistratului Urbanu. And I think it's translated as president or ruler of some overseeing body of the city. End quote. Here's the content of the letter, to demonstrate the progress that was made from the point of view of cleaning up the language spoken and written by Romanians everywhere since that date forth. Side note here, it's a rough translation because the Romanian words are extremely distorted and no longer used in today's vocabulary. Quote, the post of the supreme notary of the magistrate of the city of Făgăraș became vacant. I was coerced to substitute you temporarily with an annual payment of 400 FR. That might be francs. About this, you would honor me by recognizing that wish and accepting the job through the swearing-in process, and that you will come work for me as soon as possible. End quote. And Densusianu had something so that he wouldn't starve to death. Perhaps even for the material standard of the Romanian intelligence from there, no, not only from 1870, but also from 1912, the start looks promising. I now fear that they can't receive not even this much. But I can't help but think with happiness in my soul that during those times from Făgăraș, the small Basarabian city from the mountain country, and especially that of Mircea, had in its midst a primary notary and a lawyer, and both later on became, for us, glories of our country's culture. Look why in those countries true Romanian democracy is rising consciously and solidly. Look what kind of people we should also employ if we want to rise out of the misery we have been struggling against for more than 50 years. But Densusianu had to pass the state lawyer exam to become a lawyer. For this, we find the following request on his part. Quote, Honorable President of the Urban Magistrate, having to take this judicial state exam at the Lawyer Academy in Sibiu, I have the honor of asking the Honorable President to grant me 10 days towards this task starting with January 1st, 1870, and at the same time to pay me for the time I utilized to undertake this task. End quote. On June 6, 1870, he made his request towards Hoc Girtis Paxidium from Hermannstadt. How Densusianu passed the state exam is seen from the three Staatsprüfungszeugnis that in his state review, page 22, he was declared open quote, capable, end quote, with the grade of, open quote, distinct, end quote, in national economy. Likewise in the German exam and the Roman exam, and with Ausgezeichnet or Presalencia, as it is translated in Romanian, for the civil judicial procedure. Also, as a document of proof to determine the previous activities of Densusianu, I will read the following letter, also made by his big brother, lawyer Aaron Densusianu. Quote, Honorable District Judge Sir Nicolae Densusianu, born in Densus in the district of Hunedoara, legitimized himself with testimonies under, it says ABCD, but I'm not sure what that part is, in the legal copies about passing his judicial studies and about successfully passing the state theoretical exams. I hired him in my office as an entry level clerk. I am bringing this to the consciousness of the honorable judge with a request to take this regional judicial review under consideration to allow Sir Nicolae Densusianu to practice as a lawyer. End quote. And I say, rough translation, Austro-Hungary seriously distorted the Romanian language then. Făgăraș, July 28, 1870. His request was approved and stated that, quote, at the same time we come to express our gratitude for your services for this city in time of, end quote. At his brother he was first a practitioner, entry level, and later a candidate and lawyer clerk. Anyways, the license to practice as a lawyer of the lawyer Densusianu Miklos is different language, Nicolae. In present day and at the Court of Appeals is recognized through the diploma from October 23rd, 1872, quote, sentence in unknown language, end quote, or, quote, from the Regal Court of the Court of Appeals in Mureș, end quote, that, quote, he took the examinations in front of this Court of Appeals and took the lawyer oath, end quote. His seat, as it was normal, wasn't very long at Făgăraș. There he published with the encouragement of Aron and the collaboration of Teof Francu and I. Lapadat, Orientul Latin, or the Latin Orient. Even though he was Latin, finding himself in the Orient, the book died fast, at the same time as the imprisonment of Aaron Densusianu for a month in jail to prove, more than ever, the conscious liberties in Hungary. The brothers left one after the other from Făgăraș to Brașov, Nicolae first in 1873, then Aaron in 1875. He established himself as a lawyer in Târgu Peștelor number 100, as is seen from the request of the, quote, Honorable Regal Tribunal, end quote, from February 6, 1873. There he practiced as a lawyer until April 13, 1877, quote, when he quit voluntarily, end quote, as is declared by the President Mali Isban in a Bizonitvani, which is a certificate from July 9, 1878. Page 23. At the same time as our troops went to Turkey in 1877, Nicolae Densusianu entered the country, this time permanently. I am trying to imagine what went on in the soul of this great patriot when the first of our successes spread among the Romanians like lightning. To this day, I don't know his exact arrival date, but she can be fixated upon by a letter received from, quote, the diplomatic agency and general consulate for Austria-Hungary, end quote, from Bucharest with the date of January 7, 1878, in which he is told that the Hungary Interior Ministry with the date of December 27, 1877 gives him the right to emigrate. Also, happily, in 1877-78, things started to go better and faster in Romania, also, just like in Plevna. We can conclude with gratefulness that on the date of February 18, 1878, in the building for the House Commission of Indigenous People, the reporter for the House Commission of Indigenous People, G. Misael, the great worker and amazing patriot, proposes the recognition as a citizen of N. Densusianu. Among other things, Misael says, quote, do you remember that opera named The Latin Orient, which received much praise from the Occident press? End quote. Densusianu obtained 60 out of 62 votes, and in the Senate home on May 6 the same year he passes with 29 white balls out of 30 voters. On October 25th same year, quote, Nicolae Densusianu, equivalent lawyer in Sibiu, end quote, is enrolled as probationer in the lawyers' table by the order of V. Boierescu, the same way it is determined through a respective judicial certificate from February 25th, 1880. Densusianu took the lawyer oath in front of the Court of Appeals, Section 1, to be able to practice the profession of a lawyer. As a lawyer, at Brasov and Bucharest, we have nothing special to say about Densusianu. Among the paperwork left from him, there can be seen the numerous folders of the people he defended at Brasov. But this was not the life calling of a superior man like him. In those times there was enough lawyers, superior people, truthfully we lack even in present day. Densusianu was made from a different fiber of being than just a regular lawyer. He had another life calling, another mission, big, I can add. Look how among his maps we can see a request, written cleanly and even stamped, towards the Board of Lawyers from Ilfov, through which during a 5-year phase he wanted the request permanently. Even though it was already made, he never found a way to send it. From this unsent letter we can clearly see what he wanted to do. His first publication in the country was, page 24, L'Element Latin en Orient, the Latin element in the Orient. Les Roumains du Sud, the Romanians from the south, Macedonie, Thessalie, Epirie, Thrace, Albanie, avec une carte ethnographique par N. Densusianu et Frederic Dam from 1877. I'm going to go over all these names in my analysis. Just 1 second. The book is his opera and translated by Dom. Keep in mind, I am trying to find all these places separately from the book to demonstrate that what this states is fact. To continue. The book is his opera and translated by Dame. It was dedicated to a Monsieur le Comte de Chaudardy. Ambassador of France, plenipotentiaire à la Conférence de Constantinople. Don't know what that means. Just the city, Constantinople. Which I have an interesting observation I will present. This work, based on previous writing and personal research, is one of the most serious relating Macedonia. This work is now more than ever relevant. I feel it is necessary to tell you the following passages from the book. French quote. From this short point of view of Aurelian, not only did our country suffer greatly, but all of Latinity. It's the case to say the same thing as that French politician, French quote. End quote. What greatness for great people when after Traiani come Aureliani. And the consciousness becomes more clear when he writes, French quote, end quote, who amongst our politicians put the reality more decisively and clearly, the honor of his memory, discussing the rights of our Macedonian brothers, he made known to the political world of Europe that, French quote, end quote, and to show what their situation in Turkey should be, he declares on the power of historical facts, French quote, end quote. Page 25. Are they not our brothers? Why should we be surprised when our treaties were trampled on similarly? How much truth there is in the opinion that a treaty is worth only as much as the power of the one who defends it. Power, it's clearly visible that it is fatal to squash or defend the treaty. It is a double-edged sword. When will it ever be used for good? Regarding the racial qualities of this Macedo-Romanian nation, Densusianu writes, quote, end quote, French quote, end quote. He reproduces the ideas of Pouqueville, William Martin Leake, and Kaunitz. In this point of view, which is such great praise for our brothers. Anyways, regarding especially the ecclesiastic autonomy of the Macedo-Romanians, he shows in such visible light when he tells us, French quote, end quote, ref 1, then another French quote, end quote. It would be good for these rows to penetrate up the mentioned place, for their thick skulls to properly learn historic treaties before future treaties become fatal. Even the culture of this nation had a place in the national language, something that set us Romanians apart always, to our praise, by other nations. And then reference 1 is from Gesta Innocenti, IL, number 70, Sincai, Chronica Românilor, year 1202. Page 26, French quote, end quote. I was so happy a year ago when in the few churches our brothers have I heard in Romanian prayers for the well-being and happiness of M. S. King Carol and the Romanian culture. And with the right words, Densusianu proposes the only solution possible, worthy and urgent from this point of view. Man, I wish I would understand this. French quote, end quote. It is almost a year when I allowed myself to tell the same thing to the Romanian Academy, but the Romanian knows to wait. And let's not forget that their religious organization is tied to the soul of the Romanian nation in that country, where there is no official civil standards, since baptism, marriage, divorce, certificates, and burials all are done through a priest. So in the present, the largest part of our brothers who have remained religious to healthy ideas and who have broken from the old Greco-Roman organization are actually living outside the boundaries of the law. Let's hope that finally we will open our eyes. Hopefully it won't be too late based on how things are happening in the Balkan Peninsula. Densusianu also adds at the end, French quote, end quote. But for Europe to perform its duty, we must do ours first. He resumes, in a note out of his autobiography, the entire meaning of this important literature in the following words. Quote, in this book destined to reveal the situation regarding Macedonia Romania, the statesmen and the politicians of Europe, the author brought to light the importance of ethnic and politics of the Romanian element from the Balkanic Peninsula and was the first who sustained the historical arguments and the judicial rights of the Romanians from Macedonia, Thessalia, Epir, etc., to form an autonomous national province in the heart of the Ottoman Empire, request the exemption of these Romanians from the ecclesiastic supremacy of the Greek Patriarchy from Constantinople, the introduction of the Romanian language in church and under the suborder of the representative from Romania. End quote. Page 27. But now Turkey allows everything and we do nothing. It's sad, but we now work regarding Macedonia in the same way as Aurelian in time as we did Dacia. Who will ever rebuild the bridge that connected us and will do what can be done, what must be, in this happenstance for us and for Turkey? Our brothers are waiting too long, and the waiting of our brothers want to say pain, cruel pain, unforgivable pain, for us who provoked it actually, and that could be alleviated at least in part. Let's hope and let's pass. On that date, an obvious economic move started in Romania. Commerce and the industry especially was no longer considered something good just for the Bulgarians and the Hebrews. A conscious man who did many things in those times, see Porumbaru, and whom from his home in Sfinții Apostoli, or Apostle Saints is actually translated, but it's a location, organized the first industrial exposition in our area, created the society Concord quote, Concordia Română, end quote. Hasdeu showed up to the meetings often with a warm approach and without pictures and noise, which took place over there. I even met him at one of these meetings, and Densusianu was also chosen as a member at the meeting from March 16, 1878. Wherever there was a serious national movement, we find him present. We are reaching a decisive point in the life of N. Densusianu, from which point his alternate career is chosen decisively. The Romanian Academy, which plays such an important role in the first phase of this man's life, chose him as a corresponding member. The president was I. Ghica, General Secretary Hasdeu. With such godfathers, the godson had to be someone capable. This was made familiar to him in the following way. Quote, the Romanian Academy, appreciating the high qualities you possess and your activities for the evolution of culture among Romanians, has chosen you in the meeting of April 15th and 27th, 1880, corresponding member of the Academy in the History section. End quote. It can also be said that in the same day, the Academy had a happy hand. His answer was short and straight to the point. Densusianu said, open quote, the distinction shown with this occasion I receive more than just enjoyable work for the further perseverance of historic studies. I will force myself from this point forward also to correspond to your beautiful intentions and the voting with which I was honored. End quote. He kept his word big time. Ref 1. And this reference is from a book of nominees, for sure the only one he bought, from March 15th, 1881. It can be seen he lived in the color red, Suburbia St. Dumitru, Street, Smardan, number 49. Page 28. In that year, on October 9th, the Academy communicates to him that he has the added duty of replacing Mr. Bianu as archives librarian for as long as he is out of the country. This replacement lasted long enough as Mr. D. Sturza, as president, asked him to continue this replacement role on the date of June 28, 1883. I am happy to state that the Romanian Academy, which helped N. Densusianu as a student in the hardest moment of his life in 1867 with his Braille scholarship, the same institution once he became a Romanian citizen, is looking to utilize him for his cultural scopes. This way, N. Densusianu was given the mission of collecting documents. In the volume Historical Research in the Archives of the Libraries of Hungary and Transylvania, report given to the Romanian Academy by Densusianu in 1880, we find the following, quote, returning from the historic mission undertaken in Hungary and Transylvania, which you have assigned to me in good faith in the 1878 meeting, I have the honor to present here a general overview of the research and findings I made in the libraries and archives over the Carpathian Mountains. During a 15-month time span, the duration of this mission, I researched everywhere 12 libraries and 16 archives. I studied everywhere different collections of manuscripts and documents to bring to new light or to open a broader perspective regarding our national history. I researched especially the actions and paperwork of Romania from 1690 moving forwards. The most important facts of this epoch became altered almost entirely, either due to a lack of solid knowledge of the surroundings or because foreign writers started to report events based on their own opinions, and in this way there was a departure from historical facts. In regards to the revolution of Horia from the year 1784, I was happy to find in the library of the Academy Library and the National Museum of Pesta, just like in the libraries of Cluj, Alba Iulia, Alba Iulia and Brasov, a significant amount of modern relationships which until today remain unknown to the foreign historians. The most precious historical material regarding this epoch I found in the Royal Office and the Jankovician Archival Commission. These findings presented here reveal before our eyes a world totally unknown due to the suffering and actions of our parents. They overthrow decisively the things written by foreign writers, which started in the modern literature to dress up the veracity of historical facts. Much of the paperwork that is so important for us. Oh, right. Historical facts, end quote. Much of the paperwork that is so important for us, open quote, to this very day were never researched, end quote, as he tells us. With this occasion, Densusianu also found more manuscripts. Page 29. Quote, I found in the libraries of Pesta, Oradea, Cluj, and Brasov 20 manuscripts which contain different chronicles of the Romanian countries and Moldova, of which some are in Romanian and others translated into Latin and German. End quote. In 17 out of these, quote, their historic content is longer and more complete than in the Romanian chronicles which have been published up to this day, end quote, tells us this knowledgeable man. He also studied with this occasion, quote, unpublished manuscripts of Romanian literary authors, end quote. And he revealed this way more individuals, out of which I will cite Petru Dobra, jurisconsult in 1772, in which he writes Regula Legis, and also the individual Aureliu Antoninio Praedetis, who in 1792 made a Romanian dictionary, Latin, and German. In the library of the university in Pesta, he finds the first Romanian dictionary with Latin letters, Dictionarium Valachico Latinum, from 1741-42. He found 41 written volumes of G. Sincai in the libraries of Oradea and Cluj, out of which the little-known Chronicon Daco Romanorum et Plurium Aliorum Nationum from the years 86 to 1186, in which he finds what finds what is only known through tradition and specifically the criticism of Martonfi. Quote, Ande aliquid brevibus giaris et carcere dignum juvenalis et sencae. End quote. In other words, quote, it is something worth of exile and jail. End quote. Anyways, what specifically interests our scientific world, we find out, quote, a vocabulary in the Romanian, Latin, Hungarian, and German about the names of animals, plants, and minerals titled Vocabularium pertinens ad tria regna naturae. A manuscript with the inscription The History of Nature or that of Firi, found at the Episcopal Library from Oradea. But the people willing to know the information he gathered cannot overlook what he wrote in this regard. I will only read the following passage. Quote, During my mission in Hungary and Transylvania, I was fortunate to find some original treaties from the 17th century between the Romanian lords and Moldovan lords regarding the Principality of Transylvania. This is how I found these out. In the University Library of Pesta, an alliance treaty between Radu Mihnea and Gavril Bethlen from Transylvania in the year 1617. In the state archives in Buda, a peace treaty between Ion Mihaiu Radu and Gheorghe Rákóczi from the year 1659, and another treaty between Constantin Basarab with G. Rákóczi, no year listed. One second while I make note of these names. I'm going to research them as well. Seems to me like they were in leadership positions in those years. What I can say for sure is that the name Basarab is very popular throughout history. And if you remove the B, or rather the Bas, you get Arab. And Arab should have no place in Romania. Huh. Almost done. Okay, so I ended that quote about those treaties that took place. Anyways, I will add with this occasion that he discovered in Budapest, in the manuscripts of the Jesuit Hevenesi, the important original act, the manifest of the union with the Roman Church of the Romanian metropolis from Alba Iulia, with the conditions of the union, dated and signed October 7th, 1698. Anyways, to demonstrate how much this man worked over the last 15 months, look how his reports towards the Academy ends. Quote, I have the honor of forwarding here the entire collection during this time, 38 manuscript volumes, one with photos, 2 old tables in oil, or oil paintings maybe, several portraits and drawings, facsimiles, together with 3 copies of the content on the medal of Horia. End quote. To conclude with the... Oh, this is page 30, by the way. To conclude with the analysis of this work, I will say that he gathered this way and analyzed 783 documents regarding only the revolution of Horia from 1784, 125 manuscripts, and other documents with different contents from 1290, or rather the year 1290, up to the last century. From these we can clearly see what material N. Densusianu used when he wrote The History of the Revolution of Horia, and why this work, based on 783 documents, was the last word in regards with the complete tragedy of these parts of our nation which preceded the big French Revolution. How much do you think this 15-month mission cost the Academy, of a man disgusted of staying in hotels, of traveling to so many cities, to pay the copywriters to print 38 volumes of manuscripts regarding such a tense subject? 3,500 lei was given to Densusianu, in other words, 7 lei per day. I have nothing else to add. So little for so much wealth of knowledge, for such serious activity. You know, this hard and honest work serves as an example for the numerous delegates sent in missions, to beaches or wedding trips with large sums, more important than can be believed, paid with the sweat of those poor and uneducated souls from the countryside. Let it be that those that give and those that receive, so often and so much in this country, to be ashamed, if it is possible, looking at the limited number of individuals who bring documents out of which N. Densusianu is the leading figure. While N. Densusianu used all his power to work, forgetting that he had the power to be a lawyer, while he performed so many services for his people and country, he lived in almost the same misery in the capital in which he started. In those days, barely given any money by those in charge of state budgets, side by side with other individuals whose work is worthless by comparison, and with the guidance of individuals who are supposedly in charge of political affairs. A man with a heart, a good Romanian, who in a decisive moment, during the time I too was a puppet, he decided my fate also. Ioan Bratianu did a great deed. He is the individual who deserves credit for naming N. Densusianu as translator, along with, rough translation, great head of state of the army. Where the boss was General Falcoianu, who names N. Densusianu officially on March 10th, 1884, page 31. And as Caragiales said, he had a salary of 200 lei, quote, 200 lei monthly salary after budget expenses and 100 lei monthly for the duty of translator, end quote. This minimum wage sum in our country's budget, rich in other meaningless domains, was the paradise of this modest man and his chosen worker. From this point forth he had an assured lifestyle. He no longer had to go to the libraries only. From this point forward he had a table to write on, his, in a warm room, what he dreamt of the most. He, who saw just as I did how misery took so many to the grave, among them N. Scurtescu, educated man with rare sentiments, whom we used to meet in that seat of Romanian intellect from those times at the Fialkowski Cafe. How many similarities between these two individuals, both with a golden heart, with pure thoughts, and the eternal desire to work for their people. I can still see this Enscurtesco in a miserable and cold room which was at the end of Boulevard Muguranu, without fire, with a thick coat on him, at a pine tree table, writing, weak and sick, with white gloves, torn and poorly taken care of, which he wore so that his fingers could not freeze when he held his pen. Gosh, how much suffering for the good people of this nation. All these things Densusianu knew also. All these things he knew intimately in his soul and state of being. By the way, I know these things too, in my own way, but very similar. Sure, the miserable and painful life of this man will not become tolerable, but you can hardly say it was much better. Still, one thing was certain. He could lead a peaceful life. Without interruptions, he could be humble, through work, manifest his beating heart's desire to do as much as possible for his nation. And truly he worked how not many will find out in this country. I, who got close to the heart and soul of this apostle of our nation, bow with great awe and recognition to his life's accomplishments. We now reach the moment when he published the most important work of his life, which he didn't have a chance to see completely typed, because his fate was unfortunate in this regard also. He died without getting a chance to type the last section of his work, which became posthumous forever, to raise him in the nation's pantheon. In October 1884, he brought to light that admirable book, a model based on sincerity and pulling information from all possible avenues about all types of subjects. Page 32. Titled The Revolution of Horia in Transylvania and Hungary, 1784-1785, written based on the official documents. But how many know this book? I testify in embarrassment, I too just read it. Who, especially after 1907, should not have read it? Between the Revolution of Horia and that of 1907, the difference is only in time and place, but has the same causes: the autonomy of the ruling class, the lack of righteousness and good leadership. The pain, greater for us, is situated only in that the role of the noble Hungarians and the foreign administration was played by our brothers. Brothers? Until a certain point. Read, I would say, our people who lead the country, read this book of centuries-old suffering of a nation. Read and see so that 1907 doesn't have a second day. Read, you rich people who have drained an entire nation for your own vanity and emptiness, and tremble in front of what faces you. Read it, those of you who mingle unprepared with the leadership of this country. And if you still have a consciousness, move aside. Finally, read it, those of you who can see a great and beautiful Romania between sisters and think what must be done. Read it, all of you desperate of the power of the Romanian nation. Read it if you want your hearts to beat in the face of patriotic acts, along with the writing Ioan Voda the Terrible, the unforgettable Hazdel, to become even better Romanians. And don't think Densusianu let himself be led by only the heightening of the nation, or the wish to have a subject matter. No, this is far from the truth. He followed historical truth with a rigorous scientific method, searching only the truth, and with certainty he was the happiest when he saw where it led him. He tells us clearly in the preface, quote, history having the noble mission of portraying the good and the bad of the lives of nations, likewise the only principle which led to the description of these events was the search and exposing of the truth. End quote. From his research can be deduced mathematically that, quote, the Romanian nation raised itself in 1784 against feudalism, not because it wanted to have an easier life and work as a serf, but because of the feeling in one's heart that he is born for a better life. He desired that the land occupied by the nobles, realizing that it was once his own property, wished for the rule of Transylvania because it was considered the only legitimate inheritor of this native land, finally wanted the expulsion of the dominant element because for sure it was considered a legal nation only in Transylvania. End quote. Page 33. Quote, alongside the freedom from feudal servitude, the revolution from 1784 had as its main focus the freedom of the Romanian people from political servitude and the liberty of Transylvania from the leadership of another race. Straight to the point, the revolution from 1784 wanted to destroy the political system of those three nations privileged in Transylvania and on its ruins build a new Romanian political system. End quote. He considered this revolution as only a link out of a chain of great deeds, which ultimately have the same scope. Quote, even though these events happened in different places, in the Balkans, in Olt, at Prut, in the Abrud Mountains, at first glance they seem like isolated events, but researching deeper their nature and mystery will find in them an intimate moral connection, the same ideas and aspirations, the same bitter fight against the foreign domination, the same convulsions in all parts of the body for the rebuilding of a Romanian leadership. This was the face of the 1784 revolution. End quote. 1 second. He spends a lot of time concentrating on the rights of the Romanian people in those parts of the historical past through his special organization of the entire Romanian nation, the lack of realization of the foreigners against this exploited element, which the enemies thought it brought to its knees, everywhere and anywhere there was still a Romanian breath. Quote, this historical analysis is indispensable, he says, because only with the help of the past we can explain our ideas and the different phenomenons of the life of a nation. End quote. He drills his point hard, which he proves extensively. Quote, the old social and political organization of the Romanians was based on a military system. End quote. Finally, he says, quote, the revolution of 1784 should have brought to light this hidden nation of Transylvanian feudalism to proclaim for the first time in front of Europe how Romanian this country is, Romanian since the oldest historic times. End quote. To justify the Romanian Revolution, he who searched in everything possible in this regard reproduces from some letter in French, Seconde lettre d'un défenseur du peuple à l'empereur Joseph II, then a French quote, and quote, page 34, quote, I am the first who defends still the cause of the Romanians who became victims in this insurrection, and I repeat that the Romanians have every right to revolt until they become slaves and unhappy. To punish them for exercising this right, it means to punish them for being human. End quote. I'm not sure I translated that 100% okay. Look how a man with a soul spoke. The great emperor, who had a bad impression of the Romanian crimes, which are almost insignificant compared to what the Hungarian nobles did, says in a letter towards Chancellor Esterhazy, quote, perhaps with the same success these wild beasts could transform, if at least earthly lords of these Romanians could gain through schooling better principles. Earthly lords. I found that interesting. Does that imply there's something more than earth? Anyways. And in another gathering, the emperor says decisively that, quote, how bad the Hungarian constitution is, end quote. The emperor says in another letter towards Count Esterhazy, quote, how bad the institutions are that exist now in the districts. Nothing can convince better anyone, not even the most prejudiced, only that which is happening today. End quote. There cannot be a more clear justification, more sincere and categorical, of the revolution of the villagers. And in the end, it's still him that adds by writing to Baron Bruckenthal, who leaves behind him a Sas museum at Sibiu, and so many graves with Romanian bodies, proof of his repression through his lack of understanding. Quote, this sad example should convince the nobles and the possessors that their lives and fortunes are in the hands of the masses, in other words, the people, and only by treating the people with equality, with love and trust, can be sustained in a stable mode. The excess of severity can last for a while, but the people that have nothing to lose, who are not tied to a home and backyard because they can barely live after them, these individuals will take advantage of the first occasion to commit the greatest excesses. End quote. I am one of these individuals. However, the way I want to make a difference is not like them. DNA awakening. But we are reaching the painful end of this complete tragedy. Densusianu tells us everything, absolutely everything. It is unbelievable how he could gather so much material, after which day by day he describes everything and indicates the names of those locked in cellars or turned martyrs in public places. I will reproduce something from the last minutes of the great heroes. Quote, first they turned the wheel on Kloshka, starting from the feet towards the head, and as one eyewitness tells us, he was hit at least 20 times before his soul ceded. During this time, Horia, the first captain, had to watch with his eyes the horrible death of his devoted friend, who until the last moment remained faithful. Just so you know, these are the main leaders of the revolution of Horia. I'll speak about this in the analysis. After Kloshka, Horia was sat on the wheel. Horia, says another witness, went with no change, with a stubborn heart destined for that sour hour of his life. He was treated with a little bit more grace. After a hit which broke his right fluero, I think it's shoulder, he received only one additional pity hit on his chest. End quote. It is time to say thank you for your kind intent regarding Horia and Krishanu. Densusianu says, quote, all three were the victims of the national sentiment. All three sacrificed their lives for the happiness of the people. Their crime was the crime of liberty that the entire Romanian nation wanted. End quote. The nation appoints its saints, just like in prehistoric Dacian times, its martyrs. What is more alive in the hearts of our suffering brothers from across the mountains than the names of Horia and Iancu? And then, quote, regarding him, speaking about Horia, Densusianu says, in 1784 they were the target of the eyes of all the villagers, fallen from his plans, abandoned by Emperor Joseph. The public respect for him never died. In chains, in unhappiness, he was loved by the entire nation. With an ancient firmness, he did not ask for the emperor's pity. He did not tremble in fear. To the contrary, with the same noble devotion as he fought in life, with the same powerful conviction of his saintly cause, he went on to the despotism of Golgotha, and did just like in his last moments, to be admired by his adversaries. Side by side with Petru and Asan, with Mihail and Gallo Romano, he won an eternal place in those noble hearts who fought for the liberty of the subjugated Romanians. End quote. And when the last part is reached in Densusianu's work, he brought to attention the good result that came out of this revolution, for which so many anonymous heroes of the people suffered and bled. Densusianu says, quote, personal servitude, serfs tied to the land, the forbidden... Hello? Hello? You received information regarding chronic pain from me and you're a robot and do not want me... Okay, bye. Please remove you from your mailing list, you fucking assholes. Interrupting my moment of reconnecting with my ancestors, if you will. I'm gonna say this part again. Densusianu says, quote, personal servitude, serfs tied to the land, the forbidden act of moving from one noble to another, which was decreed by the Hungarian House onto the villagers at the end of the 1514 revolution, was erased after 270 years with the blood of the Romanian people in Transylvania. End quote. And that, quote, the abolishing of being tied to the land was the great and most glorious deed done, which Emperor Joseph did for the Romanian people. End quote. After the revolution, of course, he continues to say, quote, the most powerful weapon of feudalism was destroyed. End quote. I can read and not add the phrase which honors the memory of Densusianu. Quote, it wasn't the lack of morals that made the unhappy villagers and priests, page 36, to rise up. It was the lack of moderation, lack of principles and humanity in the bosom of the nobles and the government. Before God and before people, it is far more immoral and inhuman to bond in the chains of slavery and to make out of the law of morality the law of servitude. That quote should tell you you are a slave. End quote. Let these cruel days be the last ones in the long line of martyrs of our nation. Didn't happen. Let it be rulers like Joseph II, but more determined, so that our brothers can have, Let it be so that this nation can, at least united spiritually and culturally, contribute something towards the progress of humanity. It's not happening today. A fucking 100 years later, this is not happening. Things are getting worse today than they were back then. We just have the illusion of freedom. It breaks my heart, you know. Anyways, to continue. To do this is not only a right but a duty for those free. Reading this admirable work of Densusianu, hope grows in our hearts that we are in the dawn of happier days, which have no way of not bringing the power of the warmth of the sun and the righteousness of humanity's rights. It's even darker today. They would be ashamed if they saw what happened to the world today. We now remember a deed worth praising. The Romanian Academy awarded a prize of 5,000 lei to the one who wrote the history of the Revolution of Horia. This was the reward for the hard work done, which would facilitate the necessary means for Densusianu for his long journey, which he undertook for the preparation of his monumental opera, Ancient Dacia. But we will speak about this later. A book such as The Revolution of Horia cannot remain without noise in Hungary. First, as always, it was stopped, and in April 1886, in Budapesti's Manly number 112, drafted by Pavel Gyulai, also known as Pavel Humfalvi, publishes a study called Densusian Miklos, or Nicolae Densusianu, Legu Job Munkai, which was also published in a brochure of 52 pages. The same individual, a year before, wrote contrary to Densusianu's ideas about history, the study, which I'm assuming is Hungarian, Hogyan Xinalodik Nemeli Historia. Densusianu protests against his work's ban and challenges the Hungarian government to indicate to him a single passage from his work which is not found in the citations of the documents found in the libraries of Hungary. On January 3rd, 1885, he receives a letter from, quote, Legation et R. Dostrik Hungary a Bucharest. Rough, end quote. I think it means the Austro-Hungarian delegation from Bucharest, in which he is told a French quote. I wish I knew what it said, end quote. Also in 1886, he started to publish numerous documents regarding, page 37, regarding the Romanian history from about the years from 1199 to 1345, picked and accompanied by notes and other variations of the text, I'm assuming. The first volume of these documents, which he calls, quote, External Fountains, end quote, has a short preface in which he tells us, quote, Our indigenous documents, domestic archives of the Romanian archives prior to the 14th century have disappeared. In those times, full of calamities through which the Romanian countries passed, not only the altars were hid by iron and fire, not only our cities and villages, but the most unfortunate events, even the internal monuments of our national history. End quote. These 6 volumes contain admirable material in those 4,822 pages big letter format. The publication of these documents started in 1887 and finished in 1897. Look at their succession. They are called tomos, which means volumes. 1887, Volume 1, Section 1, Part 1, with XXX 701 pages. 1890, Volume 1, Part 2, with XLV 11 III 889 pages. And those XXX things, those are Roman years. I'm not going to bother trying to figure out what that is. 1891, Volume 2, Part 2, with XLII 729 pages. 1892, Volume 2, Part 3, with XL 747 pages. 1894, Volume 2, Part 4, with XXXIII 756 pages. 1897, Volume 2, Part 5, with XXXII 770 pages. Studying in the middle volumes, nothing tells you anything about this activity of Densusianu. Only in the last volume from 1897, in which he seems to say goodbye to this kind of publications, determined to dedicate all his time from this point forward to his monumental work, Ancient Dacia, we find the Preface. In this we clearly see Densusianu's objective for which he was tasked to publish, and in which he gathered from all parts, especially Feger, Pesti, Tynar, Engel, Dogiel, etc., all that interested him in completing the plan he had. That's where we find that, quote, in regards to the plan I had in choosing and reuniting all historic material of the different epochs starting from the year 1199 to 1575, published in those 6 volumes until now, were led by the following principle: to not forget anyone, to not sacrifice anyone, to integrate in this collection every territory inhabited by Romanians, and the facts and events that pertain. Or in other words, I always had in my foresight the entire history of the Romanian element in any countries that may have existed in the past, whether it was larger states or organized only in districts, provinces, and national provinces, or spread out on smaller islands and further out in the midst of other superpower nations, but still living a Romanian lifestyle. End quote. Page 38. And this is what he did, as he tells us so rightfully. Quote, in the old history of a nation, even the life of the smallest ethnic island, regardless of how far away it is, presents a special interest to be able to explain better many confusing things from the labyrinth of past centuries. End quote. And in regards to the epoch he chose to gather his published material, he shows that the time, or quote, the time from the powerful colonization of Dacia Traiana, or Thracian Dacia, until the end of the 16th century contains the fundamental epoch of our national history. This epoch is closely tied to the Latin origins of the Romanian people, with our political laws and institutions, with the new formation of the Romanian states in the 13th and 14th centuries, and finally with the treaties closed between the Romanian states with the Ottoman Empire for the protection of our frontiers from the Muslim invasions. This is why historic documents which refer to this faraway epoch occupy first place among our historic national thesauruses. These documents contain facts and dates which serve not only to shine a light upon distant times in which they were written, but constitute at the same time a very precious material towards understanding better public life conditions and the events from newer history. And that's exactly why I'm presenting this fucking book, okay? This twofold importance that old documents have for history is quite explainable. Old society, which is right, disappeared, but she left her marks deeply in the laws, in the traditions and ideals of our newer society, and even in our principles of state. End quote. Later on, he, the great expert of our history, affirms that, quote, examining and studying in great detail with all affection these written remains of ancient history, the unbiased historian will be convinced that the Romanian people is not only the oldest nation that lives today in the Carpathian Mountains, in the north of the lower Danube, but was in the Middle Ages a very important people with a great role culturally, even in the lands that extend in the meridional sections of the Danube, from the Adriatic all the way to the Black Sea. This preface, admirable in its clarity and full of learning, is finished with the following note. Quote, ultimately, we are left forever with the task and duty towards posterity and towards historic science to gather and codify every day our external historic monuments and to rebuild this way the archive of our faraway past. End quote. The Academy in this regard is more than just worth praising because, page 39, because the path they paved allowed him to gather and even publish rich material which grew roots in all similar work that followed afterwards. But let's return to 1885 to where we left behind the thread of his life and his personal voluntary sacrifice. In the same year, he published the Monuments for the History of Făgăraș country, the work which was published 15 years prior to the work formally accepted by the Academy of Ioan Mihali from Opsa from 1900. Quote, Maramureș diplomas, end quote, from the 14th and 15th century, published in Maramureș Ziget. In his work, Densusianu, who with another occasion wrote about the errors accepted as historical facts, quote, then when the falsity is introduced once in history, it is very hard to remove it and even to understand it. End quote, Ref 1. He went on to cite the following passage attributed to the Hungarian historian Antonio Verantiu, who wrote between 1538 and 1540. Quote, Romanians of Transylvania do not possess the joy of any liberty, don't have any nobles, have no rights of their own, with the exception of the few Romanians who live in the district of Hațegui, where it is believed that there used to be the capital of Decebal. These Romanians from the district of Hațegui gained nobles during the time of Ioan Huniadi, who was born there, because they helped him diligently in his continuous fights against the Turks. All the rest are peasants, Hungarian serfs, don't even have their own districts, and live lost here and there in the entire country. And just so you understand, as I'll present in the follow-up video, Austria-Hungary was very powerful. Hungary, for the last 500 plus years has been very powerful. Hungary was Rus on older maps. Hungary is where the Jews and the Jesuits really come from in massive numbers. But let's just call it the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Hungary of today. I have no hate towards Hungary, but yeah, I don't hate anybody. I just want a better world. That's what I want. He destroyed, and by he I mean Densusianu. Densusianu destroyed these untrue affirmations, and perhaps even with a hidden agenda, with the numerous articles he published and proved that, quote, specifically, we know today with perfect certitude that the lands of Hatsegui, of Hunedoara, and Deve formed in the past a complex set of Romanian districts and were called in papers Districtus Olacales. We know that the entire nobility from there was a Romanian nobility. We understand Romanian in a political and ethnic sense. We know that this nobility was a different social class from the Hungarian noble class, distinct from it through its origins, through its history, and the nature of its laws. We know this nobility was not created by Ioan Huniadi, parentheses, Corvinul, close parentheses, nor by Hungarian kings. On the contrary, it was old nobility whose past is lost in the darkness of the Middle Ages. This nobility was named in the papers of the Hungarian kings Nobiles ut dicitur valacorum, or Nobiles Olachi, parenthesis, Valachi, end parenthesis, which is different from Nobiles Hungary or Veri Nobiles Regni Nostri. Also, alongside the Romanian districts, parenthesis, Districtus Olacales, close parenthesis, alongside the national nobility, there exists in the country Hatsegui a particular Romanian right. The Romanian cannot be removed from his property, not even in the case of high treason, in which case he could only be judged by his equals, the nobles, Chinezi, parenthesis, lords or bosses of a free group of people, end parenthesis, and the old Romanians. The denomination of page 40, Moshi, or all people, was made there in a totally different context, contrary to how we see they did in Hungarian localities. We find out here, in the country of Hatsegui, the institution of the Chineziatele Românești, which rough translation means meeting of the lords, the institution of sworn-in Romanians, a Romanian system of imposits, parenthesis, quinquagesima, close parenthesis, all foreign particulars when compared to the spirit of the Hungarian legislature, close parenthesis, close quotes. And this was not the only part where the Romanians, through their rights, they were able to hold on to, prove their priority in controlling the country and the origins of their part. Densusianu also proves that, quote, other than the country of Hatsegui and the Severin Banat, Banat means locality or foreign currency, there was also on the meridian side of Transylvania 2 Romanian provinces, the district of Făgăraș and the district of Omlaș. But until now, the old relationships of these provinces lie in the breast of darkness. We don't know the complete series of dukes, nor the institutions which the Romanian nobility of these parts of Transylvania created. Today we find ourselves in the pleasant position to publish here a collection of documents in regards to the country of Făgăraș, extracted from the interesting archive of Mr. Aaron Densusianu. End quote. These documents his brother Aaron gathered while he was a lawyer in Făgăraș. And let's not believe that the material he used for his own purposes was not official material. It was in large part gathered from the history of Hungary. He gathered the material from even Hungarian writers because he tells us, quote, "The precious material brought to light by Pesti reveals to us another important truth. It is considered that Severin Banat formed in the breast of the Hungarian kingdom a Romanian political province, that it was separated into 8 Romanian districts named Districtus Olacales, that all separated districts formed the political unity with rights and specific liberties, similar to the 7 districts of the Saș and the 7 districts of the Sacui in Transylvania. It is concluded that there exists in Banat only one nobility, and this was Romanian, that it had immunities and rights that did not derive from Hungarian kings, that in all of Banat there was a rigorous Romanian right named Jus Volahii Antiqua Lex Districtum Valachicalium. That's Latin. And about all these special circumstances, Veranchu mentions nothing. End quote. The publication of these papers is of great value, and especially as Densusianu put into perspective, he tells us again, quote, "These documents shine an interesting light about the social organization, political, judiciary, and military, in a few words, about the old constitution of the Romanian people from the country of Făgăraș. Specifically, we see that in Făgăraș there exists only a historical nobility, which kept its old denomination of boieri, and their own sigil named Sigillum Boieronum, that the boieria from the country of page 41, Făgăraș was not only a simple noble prerogative, but also at the same time an office in regards to the business undertaken publicly in these lands, that the only condition of these boieri was to maintain servicii militari equestre, which translates to cavalry, that the boieri from there and in time of peace was organized in a military way, having a captain, lieutenants, and their own decurioni, which is a Roman-style military unit made of 10 individuals overseen by the captain and lieutenant, bleed style. Further along, we find out that the principle of boieri was applied even to the ancestral lands. In other words, the judicial aspect of these institutions applied to the land. And what is the nature of these ancestral lands of the boieri from the Făgăraș country? First, they appear as hereditary and unalienable of the family. In Latin, haereditates boeronales, but with the character of owned fully for the possessing boier. End quote. And with the right word, from this paper, Densusianu reaches the stunning conclusions full of learning that the Romanian organization from the past, quote, "That which forms the general character of the Romanian nobles from Făgăraș, Hațeg, and Banat is the mission is to be permanently armed, This is how we found out that the nobles from Hatzeg formed a stable army around those castles, the nobles from Banat constantly defending the fortresses and the shores of the Danube, and the boyar from Făgăraș in the old duty of maintaining a cavalry. Then there's a Latin quote. On the contrary, when the Hungarian nobles were called to arms, only during wartime. End quote. And as a general conclusion, he specifies, quote, this was the Romanian nobility. This way, the Romanian nobility has its institution in the military institution. The Romanian became boyar and was given ancestral lands because he was military and not because he was given nobility and was obligated to become a vassal because through the donation and title to be obligated to his duties, as was the nature of the German and Hungarian feudalism. End quote. In Densusianu vibrated a patriot. I'm going to try not to cry here because this applies to me too. It's hard for me to read this part. Here goes. In Densusianu vibrated a patriotism warmed by a fire that doesn't exist in just anyone. He was not a patriot because he was Romanian and grew in this direction. He wasn't through instinct and even less sectarian and fanatic, how some are and destroy multiple national causes, which they believe they serve through meaningless causes. Densusianu was a patriot through his conviction, born and based on a profound cultural history. No one else was as convinced as him, based on the facts of the past, of the importance of the Romanian ethnicity and the role this would play in the future. I am the future. I am the one that will play the role that he started. Him, the humble man, who didn't want to upset anyone. Neither do I, but I have to. Him, with his personality which was least disposed to waste time arguing or through personal troubles. Him, fully immersed in speaking and writing. You had the impression the Englishman was lost on the Danube shores, became furious when he saw things being written that don't correspond to the historical truth which he knew so well, that you remain amazed of where he found them from, and when he had time to read them, know, and to think so deeply. And this concludes part 1 of the preface. Let me know how I did in the comments. I will take all suggestions for when I do parts 2 and 3 and finally get to the book. For now, if you're interested in my conclusions on this 41 pages, stay tuned, as the next video will analyze all those names that I mentioned to get a better understanding of how Romania plays a greater role in the history of Europe of today and of a few hundred years ago, and how it really connects to really the entire world today. This is something that I will start analyzing in the next video, but a full comprehension requires presenting the entire book. How long did I take? Let's see. 2 hours? Holy crap.